So the panel today is around, at the end of the day, how do we make the shortest fulfillment times possible, right? So one of the things that I think comes into that is how do you design the network? So maybe let's start with you, Pete. We'll just go down the line. A couple thoughts around, given the pressure that you guys talked about, which I thought was great in the previous discussion and case study, around some of the pressures around same day, next day, whatever fulfillment window you're trying to hit. How does the design of the network factor into that?
It's a huge part of pretty much everything we do. From a lot of research we've done internally and some research we've seen outside, for an e-commerce company, Net Promoter Score is a huge part of our business and how our customers see us and whether or not we're going to be growing effectively or starting to founder a little bit. And one of the things that always comes up as a major piece of NPS that's kind of outside of our realm, but is really a part of fulfillment is delivery. And was your delivery on time? Was it fast? Was it accurate? Was it up to the standards of where a lot of companies are now tracking perfect order score and perfect fulfillment? And along with that, we've realized we need to build a network that can not only meet the fast speed, but also the accuracy in terms of fill rate. And that's why we look for partners that can not only scale with us quickly, but scale with us on the operational side and be able to keep up with exactly what we're doing at all of our networks, be able to take in quick promotional products or changes within our network and do those accurately and effectively.
Great. Jeff, how about for you, network design?
Yeah, so a few years ago we identified some impending capacity issues we had with our current distribution network. So I think in 2014 we started a pretty comprehensive traditional network analysis to see what our DCFCs need to look like and where they need to be. Back then, traffic was going down in stores. And we didn't think that was a long-term issue. I don't even think we thought about it. We continued down the path of our traditional network analysis. We actually went out to the West Coast, which is where we have a bit of an issue. And we looked for land or facilities that we could expand our network. Somewhere along the line while we were looking at that, we realized, this traffic thing going down in our stores is not going to go away as more and more people buy online. And I think Karl had a slide up in the last presentation that showed 16 warehouses to reach 98% of the United States population in one day. And they've got 500 plus locations that they can do that. We started to look at ourselves and say, we've got 500 plus stores in the United States. And our stores we're Designer Shoe Warehouse, right? They're big stores. Why aren't we leveraging those stores? So to do just what Mike said earlier today, we are actually putting more and more inventory into our stores, even though traffic's going down. And we're going to leverage them as mini fulfillment centers. And I see that there's a question on there already about, what technology are we using in the stores? We are, we're coming up with a new store format. It's, you've got to create the wow factor for the customer again. And we think by having 30 or 40% more inventory available in the store is going to be a wow factor when they walk in, but we can also leverage that to ship out of. A quick example, back in 2015 during our peak week, we shipped about 20% of our orders out of stores. In 2016, we shipped 50% of all of our orders out of our stores.
Great. Maybe a little bit different twist on that for you, Karl, is how many people are talking to you about the design of their network, and how do you guys kind of help with that?
Yep. So everyone that we work with talks about the design of the network. It's part and parcel to what the capabilities are that we offer. We partner with different companies that do warehouse network analyses. Sometimes they're done before we engage with the prospect. Sometimes we'll engage with the prospect and be able to help them with that. There's a great, so LlamaSoft is one example. They're probably the leader or a leader in the space. We have a data partnership with LlamaSoft now where they actually pull in the data from our warehouse network into their tool. So when their customers are doing more dynamic modeling about, hey, what if, doing scenarios, they can actually say, oh, what if we had a facility in St. Louis? And then you can quickly get to, oh, here's 6 that are actually available and here's the capacity. and I can click on a button and figure out, is that a viable solution for me? So that's one example. Another is, there's another company called Starboard Solutions. They're based up in Michigan. They're more of a lightweight, quick hit, very dynamic tool that can help you do what-if scenarios. And we work with them extensively on behalf of our clients, and sometimes our clients work with them to figure this out. It's a different world where, as opposed to having to make multi-year decisions on, I'm going to do a network analysis every 3 years, and maybe 3 to 5. I'll figure out where my warehouses should be. I'll pick some spots. I'll make some commitments. I'll put up some buildings. 2 years later, I'm operating. My payback is maybe 3 to 4 to 5 years on that. 5 years from now, the world's going to be so different. It's not to say that's not relevant anymore, but it's not sufficient on its own.
Right.
How can we be more dynamic and set up facilities faster, closer to my consumers, maybe even that differ depending on the seasonality of my business?
Thanks. We're getting really good questions. Most of them are better than ones that I have. So I have, which I'll save for later, I have a strong perspective on this question, which is the viability of crowdsourcing logistics for the last mile delivery. I would love to hear the panel's perspective on are you thinking about that? Is it viable? Just what are your thoughts on kind of that last mile and going to something like crowdsourcing? Maybe start with you, Pete.
Sure. So just being as a part of a startup company and kind of looking for new opportunities and new things that are out there, crowdsourced logistics, at least for the last mile for our end, has been something that has been progressively growing over the years. We've kind of seen companies like Cargomatic in terms of their ability to do a similar thing to what FLEXE is doing in terms of warehouse space, connect companies like Casper who are looking to deliver something to somebody who has some excess capacity on their truck and make it happen in terms of a delivery for us at a lower price point than us essentially reserving that entire truck and making that happen. I feel like there's still a lot of opportunities out there in terms of expanding that capability, and we're constantly looking for companies that'll be able to maybe even go as far as some of the ground providers in terms of crowdsourced logistics for last mile.
Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, I think that there's viability in anything that is going to enable you to meet your service commitments and reduce costs, right? I think the visibility is a huge piece too. As long as you can have those three pieces, I think that you should evaluate anything new that comes into the market.
Okay. There's one, Jeff, in particular for you. I think Pete might have a perspective as well. But that's the question around, we talked this morning about pushing more orders to the store, right? And people generally are, I think, recognizing that. But this question is a really good one around that optimization between doing stuff on the floor to kind of stock shelves versus the customers getting in the way in terms of fulfilling orders. Maybe talk a little bit about maybe how you guys have started to address that.
Sure. So obviously it is a big issue you have to address, right? You've got to have people out fulfilling it. If you get an order that goes down to a store, you can't wait until you turn the lights off and send all the customers home to go out and fulfill that. So it is an issue. I think one of the ways we're looking at it is a longer term solution. We are developing our own software in a partnership with Infor that is going to make the associate in the store, it's going to make their job easier. I think our associates in our stores have to use 9 different devices today to do everything they do in a day. We're going to take that down to 1. The other thing that we're doing is we're redesigning our stores. We have a prototype in Columbus that we are constantly testing. We've got our first new prototype next year that's going to open in Las Vegas on the Strip. We are truly making our stores look like a warehouse. We might have a mezzanine in the store that's going to house inventory on top of the mezzanine, so we have associates up there that are fulfilling orders not only to customers, but also if you're down on the floor and you see something that you want to try on, you can push a button for your size, and we'll send it from the mezzanine down a spiral loop, and it'll be right there at your feet, and you can pull it off, try it on. If you don't want it, put it on a monorail that'll take it back up to the mezzanine where they can take it off and send you the size that you want to try on next. So like I said, we're trying a lot of new things, and I think you'll see what DSW stores look like in the next few years change significantly.
Sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Pete, anything similar in your environment in terms of the role of the store?
So Casper is interesting in that we've been either leveraging other wholesale partners like Westham, where we put ourselves in their store, or our pop-up retail model. For anybody within the New York area, we had a pop-up store at the end of last year, which we sold our products out of and also would take online orders. Essentially, from our perspective, the key is to have a solid POS system that can tie back into your fulfillment centers and be able to ship out orders quickly, and then also just some pretty solid demand planning and fulfillment models to support replenishment in store. Out of those locations, we were supporting takeaway. So if you really wanted to take the mattress home with you and somehow throw it in the back of your car, you could take it home with you from the store. But also, if you wanted the option of not taking it home or potentially ordering some stuff that might have been out of stock at the store at the time, we would take your order online and have it shipped out and on its way to you by the time you were pretty much on your way home.
Great, thanks. A question for you, Karl. Here around, do you think there's an inventory cost in holding in basically 16 to 1? I think I'll phrase the question this way. As you look at the network and you talk to folks, and then Jeff and Pete would love to get your perspective, as we try to be more flexible, either putting inventory in stores or in fulfillment centers, how do you guys think about the trade-off between inventory holding cost, customer service, responsiveness, those types of things? So let's start with you.
Sure, absolutely. There's an inventory cost from if you go to 16 from 1. The way we think about it is a couple things. One is, if you look at the cost, the total cost over on an access that is, how does that increase or decrease as you add warehouses? Inventory goes up, shipping goes down, and warehouse cost in the old model goes up because you're adding more facilities. In an on-demand model, that stays constant. So really, in one way, you're sort of trading off and higher inventory carrying costs with lower shipping costs plus a better responsiveness, a better speed time. So really, it depends on the company. What are you trying to optimize for? And if speed matters, and depending on if you're shipping from one facility, now your cost on the final leg is very, very high. So in many cases, you can more than pay for increased inventory in just the savings from shipping. I think the more interesting part of this for our model is when you move to a model where warehouses aren't any longer fixed nodes so much, they can vary, it actually changes the inventory allocation order management equation. So your economic order quantity equation sort of starts to fundamentally change. And this gets really, really interesting. So the PhDs that we work with on this problem, that's what excites them, is hey, here's a new way to apply the models I've been sort of enhancing for 20 years, but do so in a way where something that used to be a constant can now be a variable.
How about on your side, Jeff?
So I remember being in a strategic meeting with some of our senior leaders a few years ago, and somebody asked the question, well, what delivery service level do you need? And everybody said, well, it needs to be same day. We need to make it available to everybody in the United States. And I remember I said, well, that's not going to happen. We're not going to be able to make all of our SKUs available to everyone in the United States. And I remember someone in our marketing department said, oh, Jeff, there are people out there that can help you do that. And the point is, we're not going to carry inventory for all of our SKUs that's going to be within same-day reach of every customer, or we'll go out of business. So I think it is, the more locations you try to get into, it goes back to the discussion earlier this morning. You really have to understand, and you have to be really, really good at planning for the demand. That's the key. I think it's the key whether you have 5 locations or 16 locations. You got to figure out where your demand is going to come from.
Pete?
Same essential trade-offs that Karl was talking about. We're always looking to offset our shipping costs, especially if you picture some of the products we're going to be shipping to people's homes. They get pretty heavy, pretty pricey. The other thing, too, that we've realized is, at least from the customer service perspective and the experience, the closer we can get it to home, also the less of a chance that there's going to be some risk of damage, theft, and a lot of other issues that essentially fall on our feet, even though they weren't necessarily our issue, and end up impacting our MPS, which is our core metric. So if we can get it closer, we know we have a much higher probability of making that shipment happen and making the customer happy. That's what we're going to go for. And
Excellent. I will throw in one shameless plug from this morning. Having something like a hierarchy metrics where you can make that trade-off decision and everyone can see we're going to trade off inventory for service, that becomes really important. All right, great questions. Let's do a quick, plenty of time. So I really like this next one, which is around urbanization, given that we're in Brooklyn and New York City. So maybe let's start with you, Karl. From your perspective, the folks you work with, urbanization, how's it impacted the business?
It's a big opportunity for us. Long before we launched, next day delivery, people have been asking us, hey, what about same day? Can you guys offer same day? It's inherently consistent with the model that we have, which is an open network. Wherever there are providers that can provide the services, they can join up into the marketplace, and the customers can tap into that. So absolutely, same day delivery will be a part of the solution. There are companies today that are working with operators today that are able to get products out very, very quickly. Next day, in some cases, even faster. And that will be a further natural evolution of the model.
How about for DSW?
I think it goes along with the same strategy of us, putting more inventory into our stores is going to help us to be able to fulfill more of those SKUs that our customers may want same day delivered to them, or even within an hour. I think we've got about 70+% of the United States population that we can reach with our store network today within about 20 minutes. So in the urban areas of the United States are the majority of those. So.
Okay, Pete?
Pretty much just
okay.
Same situation. Our demographics, at least from our customers, are pretty heavily around cities. If you can imagine, it's way easier to get a mattress delivered to your house and delivered to your floor in your apartment than it would be to have to lug the thing up the stairs yourself. And that's a pretty big delivery proposal we offer our customers. And in order to do that, we need to be very close to the cities that we're servicing. So having a network that supports that is core to us achieving that.
Great. So keep the questions coming. They're really good ones. Pete, I'm going to come back to you at this end. One of the things that Joe talked about when we kicked off the session was this idea of process and looking at your processes before you go into automation. What are some of the things that you guys have taken a look at, maybe some of the things you've done from a process side that have helped the supply chain within your company? And we'll just kind of go down the line here.
Sure. So Casper started out very much focused on, since our drop shippers were not traditional fulfillment partners, we kind of had to work our operations around working with them as opposed to them working for us. So we were looking at very simple fulfillment models of you're dropping a couple of batches a day to them, they fulfill and put those things together, and then ship them from there. But really that model doesn't work in the e-com scope, where you're constantly getting in orders. You have a very high expectation of getting those orders out very quickly, especially when you're looking at companies like Amazon, which can deliver upon that. And also being able to leverage the time that you do have in order to fulfill a customer order, to try and pull in some more sales, potentially delaying the drop of the order so you can try and get some attachment, and then being able to fulfill at exactly the right time to get it out to the customer when they want it. So that's kind of one of the processes we've been looking at and revising as we've been going along. Excellent. Jeff, how about you?
So I think our average unit per order is about 1.5, so we don't have a lot going out at the same time. We have invested, though, over the last several years heavily in our DCs and FCs. to improve the process, and it mainly stemmed from an expense control, right? I mean, there was a business case behind it, so we could reduce our costs significantly. In today's day and age, and I know this is probably a different topic, but I think automation and coming up with better processes within your fulfillment centers to handle things is much more than about just expense control, because the workforce isn't there today. As more and more traffic goes down in stores and those jobs are now needed in fulfillment centers, it's really challenging in many parts of the United States to find the workforce that want to do that kind of a job. So you've got to, I think anybody has got to start looking at automation, again, not just about expense.
And then maybe from the FLEXE side, what have people told you in terms of where they've started?
Yep. So it's interesting that a lot of our customers start with us when they have this "oh whoops" moment. You don't use that word always exactly, but they're operating their business. They got a plan. There's some growth. It's dynamic, but then something happens, and I need capacity, or I need something fast. And even with Casper, actually, the very first project we worked on with Casper was essentially to help them relieve a capacity constraint in one market. Mm-hmm. And this was really a local optimization. So they were growing so fast that the operation in the Southeast was getting bogged down. They weren't hitting their delivery metrics because there was just too much stuff in the way. They were losing efficiency inside the warehouse. So the short-term fix was move some things out of the way into an overflow facility, make room for that operation to get back its original operating efficiencies and work it that way. And then over time, they started to leverage the FLEXE network as we talked about earlier. So we see that a lot, is that it's very much a local optimization. Hey, how can I relieve some stress somewhere? Maybe it's a seasonal thing. And then that'll give me some capacity to sort of sit back and say, okay, what's next?
Great. So I've got a question specifically for you, Karl. I'm going to let you answer that, and then I'll put a little twist on it for Jeff and Pete. So the question is, what's the process like for someone to stand up a new warehouse under the FLEXE model? So that'll be for you. For Jeff and for Pete, give the group some thoughts around when you're thinking about partners, whether it's FLEXE or anybody. What are some of the key things that go through your mind when you're thinking about this could be someone that could help me? So I'll start with you on your side.
Sure. So we talk about it in terms of curating a match. I spoke about this briefly before. So we're a marketplace model. People will use metaphor like Airbnb and some other metaphors. There's some of those can be helpful. But we talked about crowdsourcing as another kind of marketplace model. It really depends on who's the crowd. If the crowd is a bunch of fraternity brothers who open up a warehouse, like that doesn't sound so good. Our crowd looks a lot like, he's not up here anymore, but Iron Mountain and very professional organizations. So our job is to help curate the match. It's exceedingly rare that someone comes online to FLEXE and puts in an order and starts shipping goods. There's human involvement to help understand the scope of the project and curate that match. So that's the process that someone goes through to standing up a new facility. As they get into the second, third, fourth, 10th facility with us, typically that match gets more and more automated. The gentleman earlier asked about quality metrics. Once you understand the relative quality performance inside the metric, inside the marketplace, it gives you more confidence about which partners you can go with. And so we have people adding nodes without having to go visit the facility because there's a level of trust and understanding that the metrics can be tracked.
Great. So when you guys are looking for partners, what are you looking for?
So, when I'm looking for a partner, I think the world's changing, and it's changing fast, right? In distribution and especially in transportation. And I think, our view on this is that we want to be on the leading edge. We want to be early adopters of things. So we want to try. And I think someone earlier today said you want to do that but fail fast, right? So we want to try different things, but we do want to fail fast. So we're looking for new providers that have new ideas that are out there and are leading edge. I think at the same time, we want to look for people that have a good culture, right? Our providers that we work with have a similar culture to us and share the same values that we have. So those are a couple things we look at.
Great. Pete?
From the startup perspective, we're always looking for somebody who's willing to grow with our business, and then also just partners that we can leverage for a lot of different ways. I've lived through a couple major supply chain disruptions, including warehouse cave-ins, and not really having any opportunity or other option in order to get around that. And that's something we've always thought of FLEXE being able to fill that gap in terms of being able to quickly pop up a facility when another one is down for whatever reason. We've also kind of thought of, as we're doing our NAP tours and being able to kind of leverage our brand around the country, if there's an opportunity for us within a very highly dense area or along with some promotion, being able to quickly pop up an extra storage facility to be able to support either local needs or additional fulfillment capacity within that region to support that. Again, FLEXE is right there in terms of what we're looking for. So we pretty much focus on people with the same culture as us, and that kind of offer us not only just the traditional needs that we're trying to fill, but also some other opportunities or alternatives to help us.
Yeah, both you guys touch on culture. That's a huge piece. I know when I talk to retailers about matching demand planning vendors with them, a lot of it is around the culture. All right, so that I can keep my promise to you, one last question. I didn't touch on it in my opening remarks, but one of the areas that is incredibly important to us on the Gartner side is this idea of analytics, right? I told you we've got maturity models, which we do. One of the things we're definitely seeing is the emergence and the differentiation between prescriptive analytics and predictive analytics. So maybe just talk a little bit, we'll start with you, Pete, to wrap up. What's the role of analytics plays in each of your organizations?
For our end, it's huge. Like Karl had mentioned that FLEXE is doing a lot of the internal scorecarding and measuring of their warehouse partners. We're doing the exact same thing on our end in order to make sure we're on par with what our expectations are. Being able to better plan future product launches, kind of understand the flow and scope of work that goes on throughout the course of a week, which is pretty intense in some cases, especially during promotional periods. So data analytics is really huge. It's something that Casper focused on from the beginning when the company launched. And in terms of predictive analytics, we're always looking for ways to better get ahead of what we're doing and even further upstream what's going on within our supply chain and what we need to worry about.
Great. Jeff?
I think it's going to be critical to the success of us from a demand planning standpoint. We've got to make sure we're getting the right product into the right place. We do use analytics today in our order logic. So if predictive, so we're a bit predictive. Today, if an online order comes in, I mentioned we fulfill out of all of our stores, but we also have a fulfillment center. So we go through the same logic by looking at costs, the cost to fulfill out of each location. But we also take a look at our inventory in our stores and say, okay, how many weeks of supply do I have of that SKU, and what is our out date? Because we have certain dates we want to make sure we're out of that SKU. So what we do is we try to predict a markdown. And if we do predict a markdown, instead of sending the order to the fulfillment center, which is the cheapest way to ship it out, if we think there's going to be a $12 markdown on something coming up, we'll go ahead and ship it out of the store. So we're trying to incorporate some of that, but we've got a long way to go.
Great. Karl?
Yeah, and as a marketplace model, analytics is the lifeblood of the model actually working. Every marketplace that has succeeded, whether it's Uber, it's Amazon, it's eBay, marketplaces become valuable when they're large enough that each side cares. When we opened we had our first warehouse partner, we had one location, you try to paint the vision of a marketplace and people kind of look at you cross-eyed. Now that we have 560 warehouses and over 100 customers, the more warehouses we get, the more valuable it is to customers. The more customers we get, the more interested all the warehouse partners are in wanting to work with us. So scale creates benefits for both sides of the marketplace. That scale also generates a lot of data through the software platform, which provides the basis to generate a lot of insight and a lot of value-added sort of analytics and predictive analytics to our customers and our partners. So it's really a lifeblood of our business.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Great questions. There's still some good ones coming in. Unfortunately, we will not get to them. But thank you very much. And panel, thank you very much. Great job.